The old man didn't shout. He didn't argue. He didn't even try to push past the young janitor standing in front of the company's glass doors. Instead, he smiled. The 24-year-old janitor swallowed hard and raised his shaking hand. "I'm sorry, sir, but without an employee ID, I can't let you inside." The employees walking through the lobby burst into laughter. One manager whispered loudly, "Some homeless man thinks he owns the company." Security quickly rushed over. One guard grabbed the old man's arm. Another reached for his radio. Someone nearby pulled out a phone to record what looked like another embarrassing confrontation. But then, the executive elevator doors opened. The CEO stepped out. He looked at the old man. His face turned pale. The tablet slipped from his hands and shattered across the marble floor. His lips trembled. "Father." Every laugh stopped. Every phone slowly lowered. The young janitor stood frozen. He had no idea that the man he had just refused to let inside had built the entire company with his own hands. But what happened next would change not only Daniel's life, it would change the heart of an entire corporation forever. 3 days earlier, Daniel Carter stood outside Carter Global headquarters holding a small backpack that contained everything he needed for his first day at work. A neatly folded lunch prepared by his mother, a bottle of water, an old family photograph, and a handwritten note that his mother had secretly slipped into his bag. Daniel didn't notice the note yet. He simply looked up at the enormous glass building stretching high into the morning sky. Luxury cars arrived one after another. Executives stepped out wearing expensive suits and polished shoes. Daniel quietly looked down at his own uniform. A navy blue janitor's shirt, simple work boots, a second-hand wristwatch that barely worked. He smiled anyway, because after 6 difficult months without a job, someone had finally given him a chance. His phone vibrated. It was his mother. Daniel answered immediately. "Good morning, Mom." Her warm voice instantly calmed his nervous heart. "Did you arrive safely?" "Yes." "Nervous?" "A little." She laughed softly. "Good." Daniel frowned. "Good. If you're nervous, it means you care." He smiled. She continued. "I don't care if you're the janitor or the CEO. I only care that when people remember Daniel Carter, they remember an honest man." Daniel closed his eyes. "I promise." She paused before saying something he had heard since childhood. "Never treat someone differently because of the clothes they're wearing. You never know who they really are." Daniel laughed. "I know, Mom." "No." She replied gently. "One day you'll understand." Neither of them knew. Those words would be tested sooner than either of them imagined. The first few days were harder than Daniel expected. Most employees walked past him without even saying hello. Some left coffee cups on the floor, even though trash bins were only a few steps away. One executive accidentally bumped into Daniel's cleaning cart. Instead of apologizing, he frowned. "Watch where you're going." Daniel simply smiled. "I'm sorry, sir." Later that afternoon, Emma, the receptionist, noticed him helping an elderly visitor who looked lost. "You don't have to do that," she said. "Security can handle visitors." Daniel smiled. "I know, but kindness doesn't belong to one department." Emma looked at him for a moment. She wasn't used to hearing someone speak like that. For the first time all day, she smiled back. The same morning, across town, an 80-year-old man stood quietly in front of a wall covered with photographs. Every picture told the story of Carter Global. The first tiny office with peeling paint. The first delivery truck. The first 10 employees. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for the company's headquarters. And finally, a framed magazine cover showing his son, Michael Carter, America's CEO of the Year. William Carter smiled proudly. "I always knew you'd do great things, son." Then his smile slowly faded. He picked up another photograph. It showed hundreds of employees celebrating together many years ago. Back then, everyone knew each other's names. Managers ate lunch with cleaners. Executives opened doors for visitors. No one cared about expensive suits. People cared about people. William sighed deeply. "I wonder if that company still exists." At that moment, his longtime assistant, Margaret, entered the room. "Sir, your car is ready." William looked out the window. "No." Margaret frowned. "No, I don't want the limousine today." She looked surprised. "How would you like to travel?" William smiled. "Like everyone else." Inside his bedroom, William slowly opened an old wooden wardrobe. Instead of choosing one of his expensive tailored suits, he reached for an old brown jacket he hadn't worn in years, a faded plaid shirt, old blue jeans, scuffed leather shoes. He removed his luxury watch and placed it carefully inside a drawer. Then he looked at himself in the mirror. For the first time in years, the billionaire had disappeared. Looking back at him was simply an old man. Margaret watched quietly from the doorway. "Sir, why are you doing this?" William smiled gently. "Because money hides the truth." She looked confused. He continued, "When people know who you are, they're kind because they want something. But when they think you have nothing, that's when you discover who they really are." Margaret nodded slowly. "I hope the company passes your test." William looked out the window again. "So do I." Just after 8 o'clock, William stepped through the rain toward Carter Global Headquarters. Employees hurried past him without even making eye contact. One businessman accidentally bumped his shoulder. He didn't stop. He didn't apologize. Another employee looked William up and down before quietly moving her designer handbag farther away. A young intern frowned. Why would security let homeless people stand near the entrance? William heard every word, but he simply kept walking. He wasn't angry. He was learning. Inside the lobby, Daniel had just finished polishing the marble floor. He noticed the elderly man approaching through the glass doors. Something about him felt different, not because of his clothes, but because of the peaceful smile on his face. Daniel immediately walked toward the entrance. "Good morning, sir." William smiled warmly. "Good morning." Daniel held the door open for him. "Can I help you with anything today?" William looked into Daniel's eyes. "Yes. I'd like to go inside." Daniel nodded politely. "Of course. May I see your employee ID?" William reached into his empty jacket pocket. "Oh, I don't have one." Daniel pointed kindly toward the reception desk. "No problem. Our receptionist can register visitors." William chuckled softly. "I don't think visitors usually register at companies they own." Daniel blinked. For a second, he thought the old man was joking. Then he realized the man wasn't smiling because he was making a joke. He actually meant it. Daniel took a slow breath. "I'm sorry, sir, but everyone needs identification." William stepped a little closer. "And if I refuse?" Daniel's heart started beating faster. Around them, several employees had already stopped walking. They sensed something interesting was happening. Daniel remembered his mother's words. An honest man follows the rules, even when it's difficult. He looked directly at William, then spoke as respectfully as he could. "I'm sorry, sir, but without an ID, I can't let you enter." William looked at him for several long seconds. Then, a gentle smile slowly appeared on his face. Daniel stood firmly in front of the glass entrance. His hands were calm, but inside, his heart was pounding. For a few seconds, neither man said a word. Then the silence was broken. A young receptionist looked up from her desk and whispered to the employee beside her. "Did that old man just say he owns Carter Global?" The employee laughed. "I think he did." Within seconds, more employees gathered around the entrance. Brian, the company's top sales manager, adjusted his expensive tie and walked over with a smirk. He looked William up and down before bursting into laughter. "You own Carter Global?" William nodded calmly. "Yes." Brian looked around at the crowd. Did everyone hear that? The lobby exploded with laughter. One employee shook his head. "I guess I'm the president of the United States." Another pulled out his phone. "This is going straight on social media." Someone else whispered, "Security should remove him before he scares the clients." Daniel felt embarrassed, not for himself, but for the old man standing quietly in front of him. William never argued. He never raised his voice. He simply waited. Daniel cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, everyone. Please give him some space." Brian laughed even louder. "Daniel, you're actually taking him seriously?" Daniel answered politely. "I'm taking him seriously because he's a person." The laughter slowly faded. Even Brian wasn't expecting that answer. William looked at Daniel with quiet admiration. His eyes softened. For the first time that morning, someone had defended him. The laughter attracted the attention of the security team. James, the head security officer, walked confidently toward the entrance. Tall, serious, professional. He looked directly at William. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to leave." William smiled politely. "Why?" James crossed his arms. "You're disturbing our employees." William looked around. "I haven't raised my voice. I haven't insulted anyone. I simply wanted to enter." James remained firm. "You don't have authorization." Daniel stepped forward. "James, maybe we should." James interrupted him. "It's all right, Daniel. I'll handle this." William looked calmly into James's eyes. "So, if someone looks poor, they're automatically a problem?" James hesitated. That's not what I said. But that's what you're showing. The words landed heavily. For a brief second, James had no answer. Brian quickly interrupted. Why are we still talking? Just throw him out. Several employees nodded in agreement. Daniel looked from James to William, then back again. He didn't know what to do. Everything inside him told him this situation was wrong. Not because of the rules, but because of how people were treating another human being. Quietly, Daniel spoke. Sir, if you're willing, I'll personally help you register as a visitor. William smiled. Thank you. You're very kind. But today, I'm not here as a visitor. James sighed. He reached for his radio. Control. I need assistance at the front entrance. Within seconds, 2 more security guards arrived. Employees stepped backward, creating a circle around William. Phones continued recording. Brian folded his arms with satisfaction. This should be interesting. James slowly reached for William's arm. Sir, I'm asking you one last time. Please leave peacefully. William looked down at the security guard's hand, then back into his eyes. I spent 43 years building this company. I've walked through these doors thousands of times. I never imagined today would be the first time someone tried to stop me. James frowned. I'm sorry, but I don't believe you. William nodded gently. I know. James carefully placed his hand on William's arm. I'm going to escort you outside. Daniel's heart dropped. Something felt terribly wrong. He quickly stepped between them. James, please, let's not do this. James looked frustrated. Daniel, move aside. Daniel slowly shook his head. I don't think forcing him is the right thing to do. The entire lobby watched in complete silence. Nobody noticed that upstairs, an executive elevator had just begun its descent. The digital display changed. 25, 24, 23. Inside the elevator, Michael Carter was finishing a phone call. I'll be in the boardroom in 5 minutes. I don't want any interruptions. The elevator continued downward. 18, 17, 16. Back in the lobby, James tightened his grip. Daniel closed his eyes for a brief second. He silently prayed. God, please let this end peacefully. Then, ding, the executive elevator doors slowly opened. No one knew that the next 10 seconds would become the most unforgettable moment in Carter Global's history. The executive elevator doors slid open. Michael Carter stepped out, surrounded by 3 senior executives. His eyes remained fixed on the report in his hands. Move the board meeting to 10 o'clock, he said confidently. I want the investors. He stopped. Something had caught his attention. A crowd. Security. Phones recording. His eyebrows tightened. What is going on here? The employees immediately stepped aside. James turned toward him. Good morning, Mr. Carter. We're handling a small disturbance. Michael sighed. I don't have time for disturbances. Please clear the lobby. Yes, sir. James nodded before turning back toward William. Sir, we have to leave now. William remained perfectly calm. He slowly turned his face toward Michael. For just a second, their eyes met. Michael froze. His heartbeat seemed to stop. His breathing became heavy. The report slipped from his fingers. The papers scattered across the polished marble floor. His face lost all color. No, he whispered. It can't be. The executives beside him looked confused. Sir, Michael took one slow step forward. Then another. His eyes filled with tears. The entire lobby watched in complete silence. Even Brian stopped smiling. Emma slowly lowered her phone. James loosened his grip on William's arm. Michael stood only a few feet away. His lips trembled. Dad. The word echoed through the lobby like thunder. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Brian's coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Emma covered her mouth in disbelief. One employee whispered, Did he just say? Dad. Another stared at William. That's no way. James immediately released William's arm. His hands began shaking. I'm so sorry, sir. William looked at his son with the same gentle smile he had worn all morning. Good morning, Michael. Michael could barely speak. Dad, why didn't you tell me you were coming? William glanced around the lobby, then quietly answered. Because I wanted to meet the company. Before the company met me. The silence grew even heavier. Michael quickly walked toward his father. Dad, I don't understand. You could have called. I would have welcomed you myself. William smiled sadly. Exactly. Michael looked confused. William slowly turned toward the employees. His eyes rested on each person. Brian, Emma, James, the executives. Then finally, Daniel. The young janitor still stood quietly near the entrance, unsure whether he had just lost his job. William looked back at Michael. "Tell me something." Michael nodded. "Anything." William pointed toward the crowd. "How many of these people greeted me this morning?" Michael stayed silent. William continued. "How many asked if I needed help?" No answer. "How many offered me kindness?" Up before they knew who I was. Michael slowly lowered his head. William's voice remained calm. "I built this company from nothing. I remember cleaning my own office. I remember sleeping on the factory floor. I remember eating one meal a day because every dollar mattered." His eyes became emotional. "I never wanted this company to become a place where expensive clothes mattered more than human beings." The employees looked down at the floor. Brian couldn't even look at William anymore. Emma wiped away tears. James stood frozen with guilt written all over his face. Then William smiled softly. "But today, I also discovered something beautiful." He slowly turned toward Daniel. "There was one person who treated me with dignity. But before he knew my name." Daniel's eyes widened. He immediately shook his head. "I was only doing my job." William smiled. "No, son. You were doing something much greater. You were protecting what was right." The lobby became silent once again. For the first time that morning, no one was looking at the billionaire. Everyone was looking at the janitor. And for the first time in his life, Daniel realized that true greatness isn't measured by wealth. It's measured by the courage to do the right thing when everyone else is watching.